Hoping everybody had a great weekend. I think we did.
Yeah.
I noticed you guys brought me gifts.
Well,
that's
actually,
amazing.
I noticed there's 3, so I assume it's from our bosses to the 3 of
Wait to
us.
see what you got me.
Yeah, sorry. Heartbreak. I got you
my
more
gosh.
heartbreak.
That's not a good start to the week. Welcome to the Real Kyper and Bourne Show. Nick Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Sammy McKee, Derek Brandeo, and Jimmy Willie.
Jay Will in the house.
In the house. It's the Real Kyper and Bourne Show. Always on Sportsnet 590, Sportsnet 360, and Sportsnet Plus from 4 to 6. And wherever you download us on your favorite pods, text us at 590 as well, and we'll get to some of your questions. Hopefully they're good ones for our boy Sammy as the Toronto Maple Leafs in the dying seconds find another way to get to an overtime.
Yeah, that is now.
Can we say, JB, out of everything we saw last week, that was the best look of the Toronto Maple Leafs Saturday night versus the Boston Bruins?
Yeah, that one, Kyper, made it an even 50% of their games on the season. Their 11th overtime showing in 22 outings, which is the highest ever. Obviously, they're not going to make it through the season with a 50% rate, but boy, that's crazy. And yeah, I think it's important to note that previously I would say people would say we were hard on a team that was winning. I think today might be the complete flip of the script. I don't know how you felt about the game, but I thought they were really good in a game they lost. So we're on the other side of things today.
Sammy, safe to say it was a fun game to watch.
Enjoyed it. And you talk about dying seconds. I'm dying of heat stroke in this.
Yeah, that's something we should probably address
I
before the show starts.
I'm trying not to let it get to me. I'm just trying to think about how I'm not really uncomfortably hot, but I am dying.
I know. I have a really thin white T-shirt that I'm going to be wearing by the end of the show.
I really thought we called a truce with the maintenance man.
So
yeah,
we're going to come back, and there's a couple Raptors jerseys over there.
Yeah.
All 3 of us are just be wearing
sleeveless jerseys.
Either that or I'm going to cut the sleeves off your zigzag
cut
jersey.
that off. I hung it terribly today, too. Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
I want to make it abundantly clear. It is unacceptably hot in here
if we're
now.
leaking on camera, just so you know.
We'll know why. But
love the game Saturday.
for the most part,
sure.
not as much leaking out of the Leafs as we saw prior, even with an overtime win that we saw earlier in the week.
Yeah, Joseph Woll, really good. A couple of goals maybe you didn't love. The one he thinks he caught towards the end of the game you didn't love, and maybe the Pasternak shot. But otherwise, I thought he was really good. 11 shots against in overtime. He stopped the first 10. Can't ask much more than that out of a goaltender. And, the biggest story of the game to me, Kip, was a guy that I wrote about on Friday, Austin Matthews. We had been basically saying, what the heck is going on here? Really, really good. The type of showing where we had become accustomed to seeing again out of him.
Best game of his year, you think?
I do, yes.
Yeah, he was really good in those first 2 games where he had back-to-back hat tricks. It wasn't just the goals. I remember the conversations we had coming in here talking about, oh my God, the 60-goal guy is back and he's had big lulls. But, on a Saturday night against a premier opponent, to go out there and look like he did in that game, I think it would probably be his best game of the season.
There was moments just on the forecheck where he's moving his feet, and the puck goes the other way, and he stops, and he gets back hard, and I was like, okay, he's skating tonight. That's good.
So if we're going to go to our first Kyper's Clipper of the week, we'll break this up in 2. Okay. First was Sheldon Keefe prior to Saturday night, talking about Austin Matthews, and then we'll go to his comment after Saturday night. So let's play the first clip 1 from Sheldon before his big effort Saturday night.
No, he's going to do better in that area, and that's just it. Don't focus on the end result and get concerned with anything other than doing the things that allow you to have success individually and for us as a team. Most importantly, Austin's a driver for our team. When he's going, we're going. Is usually the case. So like our overall team game and structure and things, the consistency in which we execute, we need Austin to drive in those areas. And if that happens, whether he scores or not, we're going to be in a really good place to control play and have a chance to win the game.
Is that the closest we've come to calling out Austin?
Yeah.
I don't think that's close to it. That is.
Yeah.
And I think the question was, have you seen enough from him off the time? He said, no, he hasn't. And he probably told, would you imagine that they had a meeting and he probably told him that he might do that or he had done that? There's no way he just does that blindsides him, I don't think. Do you? Is he paying attention to what the coach is saying on Saturday morning?
There has to have been countless video sessions, I think, over the past, 9 games without a even strength goal?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. And it's his second streak this season. He had gone 7 previous.
Yeah. I don't think he said anything that wasn't already addressed at some point in the dressing room, either through video or through normal conversation between a coach and a player.
Yeah, and there's some quotes that I've seen that Keith had about him, about how he had talked to Austin and said, you need to be a driver. You need to be a shoot-first guy for us. Don't worry about, he actually says, don't worry about setting up other people. Let's just get you getting pucks on the net. Austin on Saturday night, 14 shot attempts and 11 landed on net.
Well, the thing to me is talking about that stuff in the dressing room versus saying it to the media are two extremely different things.
Mm-hmm.
So it must have gotten, and we hadn't heard him do that at all, right? He hadn't called out Matthews really at all this year. So it must have gone to a point where he was like, all right, I'm going to try this. And he went out there and he did.
The elephant in the room. The media was heading towards this place.
Mm-hmm.
I think Sheldon probably on Saturday just got a little ahead of it. Why?
Yeah.
Just be proactive on it. You've been around long enough, Sheldon, where you know that those type of questions were going to come on Austin. Marner came out of his funk with his hat trick.
Yeah.
This was only heading towards what's wrong with 34. I thought Sheldon did a pretty good job of getting ahead of it.
Timing-wise, well done for sure. And I also think if he doesn't do that, if they ask him hey, do you need more out of Matthews? And he goes, no, we're good. Everyone else is like, what is he doing? How protected do these guys need to be? So that was a pretty good call. We have a follow-up, his response to Austin's game, which is a pretty good one. Clip 4 there. This is Sheldon talking about Austin Matthews after Saturday night's game.
I thought he was a beast out there tonight. I thought he was all over the puck. I thought he attacked the net. He shot the puck. Obviously 2 huge goals for us. So, I thought he was excellent.
There you go.
And I don't know, you're the numbers guy. What do they look like in terms of puck possession? Because he had the puck a lot more
dominance
that we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, that whole line was really good. Willie was back going again pretty good. They controlled all the opportunities in there. That was a much better night. I think it was the night before we looked at their numbers. We were like, what is going on here? There were no shot attempts in a period.
I thought a big bounce back game for Nyes. To me, Willie was good. I still don't think Willie is. How many shots did they end up with? 20 shots, that line?
Yeah, 19,
together.
I think. Yeah.
So I still don't think Willie's full Willie since he came back from Sweden, but it was a step in the right direction, I think.
There was a moment with Nyes, missed an opportunity, then went down, and it was the Shattenkirk gets in behind him and scores, and I was like, oh, this could be whatever, but he did otherwise.
Could also be the jinx that Justin put on Willie, who said he's going to fall flat on his face when he gets back from Sweden.
I actually got the opposite text about Matthews because I wrote how Matthews is ineffective, and then he goes out and lights it up. People are like, okay, well, way to go.
Well, you had 2 calls this year. You had the Ovi call, and then you had the Willie call. Those are 2 pretty good ones so far.
Well, hopefully Willie gets it figured out. We don't want to watch much more.
Great observation.
Are you guys kind of surprised of, I don't know if the term is taking his foot off the gas pedal at all? Is Willie's drop from Sweden back to where his issues were before this season in terms of at times looking inconsistent or not looking like he's fully engaged? Are we back there?
Is that what you think?
I'm asking you.
I don't. I think every player over the course of 82 games it just doesn't go in all the time. You know, and he had the breakaway that kind of started the slump. I believe in slump starters, by the way. That moment he hits the 3 posts against Chicago and all of a sudden it just won't go for him. I think that happens.
And it's funny you mentioned that because in the same conference where he was asked about Matthews, they asked him about Willie and seeing his game, and he brought that exact same thing up. He's like, well, if that goes in after it hits 3 posts, he's the hero again, and we're not talking about it. And it goes, So it's like, I think there's something to that, but I think there's been a dip. I think it's hard to say there hasn't been.
Yeah.
And is it, okay, besides bad luck, is there like a lack of intensity in his game right now that we've seen that we didn't see earlier in the season.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, early in the season there's some, like, I don't call it desperation, but like he just kept going, kept hunting the puck. And I don't know, do you feel like that's...
I do feel like he's taken his foot off the gas pedal somewhat. I don't expect it to last anywhere near the stretches that he had earlier in his career. I think he's maturer than ever before in terms of realizing what's at stake here, including his contract. And I don't see him fading for a long stretch here.
Yeah, which is a good thing. Do you want to zoom out and listen to Keith on the whole overview, and we can kind of jump off from there? So let's listen to clip 2 on the overview of the game.
Yeah, I thought it was a hard played hockey game by both teams. Not a lot between the two teams. Two teams playing hard. Referees let the teams play. You know, not your typical early December hockey game. That's a tough game out there. It's fast and competitive, and I thought our guys hung right there, fought their way back, and got us another point.
In about 25 minutes, we're going to have Craig Simpson, former NHLer, Stanley Cup champion, of course, Hockey Night in Canada analyst. He'll help us break down what he saw Saturday night. So looking forward to Craig coming on the show. As far as Sheldon's overall view, anything that stood out for you outside of that?
Yeah, I think he talks about the two teams and like good game, whatever. I don't know. What were your thoughts on the Bruins? You know, they look okay.
They got a couple really good players.
17-4-3 right now, like first in the league. I don't
record
know.
Or no record,
they're okay.
They're not the team to beat.
Yeah. See, I kind of feel the same way.
Florida is.
In the division.
Yep.
Ooh, I did not see that curveball coming. I was way out ahead of that one, then swing and a miss on my part.
For you?
Well, I guess like I'm looking at the other division. Like Colorado still for me is.
I'm just talking about the Atlantic.
In the Atlantic, then I would say Florida's a better team. Tampa. Yeah. Tampa's reeling in Florida. Yeah, Florida is a team that, you know, the Leafs, funny enough, can be ahead of them. They're ahead of them in points percentage, but they just do look like a more complete team. I
think we've had a couple of examples, either Billy Jaffe from the Boston Bruins or Andy Brickley from the Boston Bruins on our show earlier. Beersy on Friday. And everybody real consistent on the goaltending being outstanding all year long. And maybe that has a lot to do with where they are in the standings.
Yeah. I mean, they have this 7-point cushion on Florida, but it's just over a quarter of the season in here. I would be surprised if they don't, you know, they lost a few games before the 3-game winning streak here. I wouldn't be surprised if someone was nipping at their heels pretty soon and they came back to the pack a little bit. Cause I look at their forward lineup and I go, okay. Like they got a great start from Matthew. We're not sure. Poitras.
We're going with that.
He was, you know, like, I don't know. He's fine, but he's not to me an impactful player for them. Marchand obviously gets their winner and scores a hat trick last night, so they got him rolling a little bit. But really, it seems like Pasternak and outside of that, pretty okay forward group.
But But Allmark's legit a difference maker.
He is.
He's legitimately.
If Boston's going anywhere, it's got to be with Allmark, Swayman, and that blue line. So I compare them to the Toronto Maple Leafs, and you take Toronto's forwards over Boston's all day long, would you not?
Yes, totally agree.
No question.
I mean,
but you would take Boston's defense all day long over the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Unquestionably.
Of course.
So
together they'd be a pretty good team.
You could make a mean one.
Pick your poison.
Yeah. I mean, what
playoffs
go. Can Joseph Wall hold his own?
So Joseph Wall, I mean, I know I mentioned a couple bad goals, but gosh, he looks good, doesn't he? Solid, like that overtime. He makes big saves.
I just think he needs reps. He needs experience. He needs to feel like he's less in fantasy island and more about, hey, this is my job and I'm the guy and I'm coming to work every day. He's not there yet.
I wonder if you have to go Samsonov, though, and terrible timing because you only have one game leading up till Saturday night. There's just the one Thursday night game. You'd hate to have Wall now sit a week, but...
Well, I'm not a believer that you throw the kitchen sink at Joseph Wall now. So to your point, you
Give
may
him a
have to
breather.
work in Samsonov as early as Thursday
That's
against
what
Ottawa.
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Oh, he absolutely has to start that game.
And plus, you lost, so you can say,
And think about when's the last time Samsonov played? It's gonna be forever.
yeah,
You gotta let the guy feel it a
The
little
only
bit.
way you don't put Samsonov in, I think, as early as this week, is that you really feel like you may go in another direction.
oh yeah, like as in,
I don't know whether or not you want to try to upgrade that between now and March or April, but that'll be challenging in itself. But you have to be convinced that you do not believe in Samsonov anymore, and I don't think the Leafs are there yet.
right.
So you would think that you'd use his money in something else to get another goalie?
I think there's
Looks like is Jake Allen better than Samsonov?
I don't know.
Not enough for me to do something.
But, I think last year he was really good last year, but there was still a lot of moments throughout the season where we're like,
Listen, there's more
like-
there's more to it than that, and I'm not here to tell you that I have any insight on this, but there has to be a healthy and good environment for Joseph Wall to progress here and develop. And if Joseph Wall starts running with this, is Samsonov going to be that
Supportive
type of
teammate.
supportive guy who can provide him with some knowledge and some information and help him build, or will he be one of those guys that is secretly cheering against him so he can get the net back?
Well, it's funny. You watch Allmark and Swayman, and their support of each other is uncommon, right? Like big hugs.
well, it's almost
best
like it's
buddies.
too much.
Yeah, it's like you don't like.
Are you
that much.
sure?
Yeah.
Like, you want to hate him a little bit, no?
Well, I don't know what hate, but you can at least want some.
Yeah.
Wouldn't mind seeing a guy catch his foot in the odd hurdle.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's interesting if Samsonov is maybe not in love with sitting there watching Joseph Wall become the 50 game guy. Well, he's a 32 game guy.
What would be the ideal thing, though, instead of Samsonov? Because you still need a guy that's going to play, right? Like, it's not going to be that you're like, Joseph Wall is the starter and he's going to play 60% of the games from now or 70% of the games from here on out. You're still going to need a guy that's good enough, but he's going to be a veteran that supports. Like, it's kind of a bit of a
Jake Allen.
golden ticket here that you're
Are we
looking
back
for.
on Jake Allen talk?
I don't know.
What about Jack Campbell? Is he available?
Yeah.
Oh, he's
Really available.
Quite available.
In a perfect world, I mean, I know Jonathan Quick's gotten lit up lately, but that type of guy that absolutely understands that he is just there to get this guy mentally, physically, emotionally ready for the playoffs.
James Reimer. Those type of guys.
I don't know about James Reimer. I'd want someone with a little bit more playoff pedigree.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. All right. Well, that's interesting because I think you're saying something.
Yeah. Now, overtime.
Oh,
We
boy.
got to have a discussion on overtime
Dun,
because
dun, dun.
okay.
Some bad visuals out there, boys.
I'm going to zag on you guys, though.
Your first one is David Kemp taking the face off.
Can't stand it. My first one, my final observation is the play Willie makes where he's last man back, and it's 3-on-3. It's so stupid. We have to talk about it so much because they play so much of it. I know it's not real hockey. You just can't make that play
Hey, listen,
last man
it's
back.
not real hockey, but
The points are on the line.
You can't give away a point either.
And it's just like, why are you doing that there?
Because live by the sword, die
No,
by the sword.
but
And
even
you
for
have been
him-
slaying dragons with that sword.
Even for
if all of a
him.
sudden, if it impales you once in a while, you go, well,
Even
we're killing a lot of dragons in the process making
Barney,
those decisions.
I agree, but even for him,
That's a bad one. Listen,
that one was a bad
This is
one.
not, I actually liked the play he made. That's not the case here. It's just that when you have guys who take chances, sometimes it bites you. That's the math of chance taking. And
And the other
more
visual,
often than not, you win.
the other visual, just like to thank you, everyone in the world, for sending me the video. I saw it. We saw it.
Saw Tavares parked at the far blue. Kip, what did you think of that moment?
I am 100% defending John Tavares.
Oh, no! We were all
100.
We all have the same
I will
thought.
say
I'm with
this.
you.
I will say
God.
this. I'm not sure it's the same reasons as yours,
Oh,
JB.
good.
Okay.
All right.
Interesting.
So
Let's have
do you
it.
want to lead?
You know, you lead.
So I played a similar type of game to John Tavares, which in that, well, a poor man's version, a broke ass man's version.
Yes.
Of recognizing that in 3-3 in that moment, he can't help on defense. He is too far gone to be able to contribute in that moment defensively.
Where is he too far gone?
Where he's waiting for Willie to not turn the puck over at the far blue. He's with 10 seconds left in overtime. He's not getting back in time to help. However, if that wall save gets made and it hits Riley's stick next, he's gone. And so he's thinking, This is an instant. I can't help that way. Maybe I can go get us one this way.
Yeah, there I disagree with you.
Okay.
Because by the time the save is, and then it goes into the side of the net, and then I think it was Morgan that overplayed it again, that gave Pasternak a second chance.
Yeah.
He could have gotten back.
No chance. But okay.
I do believe on the second attempt, by the time it got to Marchand, he probably could have gotten back.
Okay.
The reason why I defend him is because he had 0 gas in the tank. He was spent.
Mm-hmm.
And if you went back a little further back, he was on the ice. He had a defensive zone face-off where Sheldon, and I'm going to put some heat on Sheldon here. There's 2 minutes and 10 seconds on a defensive zone face-off with John Tavares and Willie. 2:10 left on the clock. From 2:10 on to 0, how long was Tavares on the ice in those 2:10?
I mean, presumably 2:10.
No, about $1.50.
Okay.
$1.55.
Okay. It's a lot.
Mitch Marner, out of 2:10, how long was he on the ice in the last 2:10?
37 seconds.
23.
Okay.
There was an offensive zone face-off where he pulls off Matthews and Marner on a shift that was 23 seconds left to put Tavares and Nylander on with 53 seconds. Can someone explain to me why?
No.
I mean, were they gassed? And Matthews is a hard 23 seconds?
I have no idea, but all I know is the most conscientious.
I guess because Tavares he wants to win the draw, and Tavares is good on draws. Would be a reason.
Pretty good too.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No, not good.
Well, I mean, he's their best face-off, man.
No, it just made no sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay. And if the worst case scenario is that you go into a shootout, hey, Joseph Wall, pretty good last little while. Yep. I don't understand how you could have left Tavares out there that long to try to come back and just if the whole idea was, hey, John, go out there and try to win the game. But
I assume Willie's their best OT guy, so it's like, get Willie back on. He's the guy who ends this.
23 seconds.
Oh, and he ended.
Your most conscientious forward out of your core four is Mitch Marner. How is he not on the ice in the last minute?
I don't know.
So I look at John, and John had nothing left to come back.
Sure. And, my defense that he is thinking about, okay, I can't help that way. Maybe I can get us one the other way is not a good defense. It's not a good defense at all. You should, mentally, all right, I should err on the side of defensive structure and come back and be on the right side of things and all that. But there are people who are clipping the ISO cam of it and going, look at the $11 million worth of effort. It's not effort. He can't get there.
He can't get. Yeah,
so he's like,
he couldn't get there
because
he was left in a position not to get there.
Yeah. So
in my opinion, anyways,
I don't even care about that overtime. I mean, I know that's flippant, but like Willie, I'm not killing him for the turnover, even though it's bad. I'm not killing John.
I just think they've played so much 3-on-3 overtime recently.
Yeah.
And a lot of the way that, they're playing their four guys the whole period.
Yeah.
Like every overtime.
Put out Domi and Robertson once.
But they stopped that. Yeah. They stopped that now. Like I've watched so much 3-on-3 that I have memorized their rotations.
Yeah.
And
Domi did get out there.
Not in this one.
No,
it was
Gregor.
Yeah, Gregor and Matthews went out for one.
I missed that.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, it's stupid to get bent out of shape about it, but there's a lot of stuff during those 3-on-3s that are easy to get bent out of shape about.
Yeah.
How's that sound? Like like the visuals of like them not bending their knees in the defensive zone and them just kind of poking around. Like, I know that it's hard, but it's hard to watch.
Yeah.
When you don't have the puck.
Okay, let's go to Sheldon talking about his number one goalie, Joseph Woll.
It's a game with no margin for error, and he's standing his ground. He's played a lot of hockey here now, obviously, and he's had no easy nights. So, yeah, tremendous growth for him through this week. A very difficult week, but he stood his ground all the way through. So thrilled for him.
The Pasternak shot, really, tough. He's a shooter, right? Like not many players in the league make that shot.
Little deflection maybe, but probably wanted that one, Kippy.
Yeah, you're talking about one of the best shooters in the world coming in 1,000 miles an hour, and Morgan Riley and, some other guys at times giving up the blue line way too easy, and it's a bit of an issue.
Right, it's the same as Seattle, the one on Riley, right? Riley backs in too deep, and I think it was Tolvanen who shot it over through him.
Riley's spent over a month now playing 26, 27 minutes a night. Don't tell me that he did not look tired Saturday night.
This is the exact case why when we complained about too much ice time for guys, it doesn't happen in a moment where a guy's just like, I'm really tired. But your gaps are a little worse, or you're not quite on the forecheck or whatever. And Riley seems to have more moments where he's protecting against having to...
Or you try to block a shot and break your thumb and you're in surgery.
Mark Giordano. I feel about that, whatever on that.
No,
one.
I'm serious.
I know you are.
When you're overspent, you start making mistakes.
It's harder to move yourself to get out of the way. That fast twitch is not as readily available. I'll give you that.
But Gio's not trying to get out of the way. He's actively trying to get in the way.
Right.
And his finger happened to
take
it.
But still, sometimes you're like dogged and you're like, I just can't make the extra whatever.
Or I'm not closing up fast enough.
Yeah.
Well, that's their decor in general, I think, is a little bit sagged off because the best guys play too much and are tired, and the worst guys aren't very good. So that's where they're at on that. Positive stuff. We did get a Max Domi goal.
And a great finish.
And a great finish at that. And a very nice celebration. I believe it was 17 years since his dad's last goal as a Leaf. Ty Domi's last goal was April 1st, 2006. Max Domi's December 2nd, 2023. So whatever that is, 16 and a half, 17 years. Pretty cool.
Really cool.
And you know what? I don't know if I said it on the show yet, but I have liked him for like weeks now. I like him more as a player the more I watch him play.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that if you kind of move him around, even if you move a few pieces around him, I think he could comfortably stay there.
Yeah. He makes some plays.
Maybe
some guys
sometimes it's Yarncroc and Robertson, although I don't see him and Robertson together and to start a playoff round on the third line. But and that's not taking away anything from Nick Robertson, because I think actually he's done a decent job of not looking out of place most nights.
Yeah, and I like him too. I don't know. Like, I don't like the line, but individually I've liked Robertson too.
And on that goal that he scored, I love the decision by Yarncroc to pass it to Robertson instead of Domi, because it just opened up the whole 2-on-1. If you had gone to Domi, Robertson was kind of on the half boards, kind of out of the play a little bit, but it just opened up the ice perfectly for Domi to come in. And
Domi skated. He skated. He's his best when he's skating. He created some separation. He made a nice little play.
And good on Domi for finishing that, and good on Robertson for getting it over to him, because it wasn't an easy pass to make. Receives it and goes backhand.
You know, we didn't spend a whole lot on last Friday, kind of teeing up the Marchand, the Boston coming back in after the episode that knocked out Liljegren and put him in a cast.
Yeah.
We did find Ryan Reeves in. He took the penalty early on Matthew Poitras.
Yeah.
It's an iffy call at best.
If it's a bigger, stronger player on their side, he probably doesn't get a penalty. Big fish
eating the little fish, but please tell me in the first round of the playoffs that is not a penalty.
No, I thought it was a penalty.
I'm not. It's a steamboat and a half.
He drove him numbers first straight to the boards with a puck gone.
Sammy, he sees he's going to get hit.
I had no problem.
Turns his numbers to him.
I legitimately had no problem with them calling a penalty. I had no problem with him doing it.
I'd rather him take the penalty than look it off.
Yeah,
that's his job. That's what he's getting paid to do.
Coming, and he's like, "That's not how you take a hit."
Well, he was just probably scared.
I also agree. It's like, you can't really hit a guy hard into the glass in his numbers. But I thought that's a little bit on the Bruins player there, too. Victim blaming's not great, but here I am.
The other positive, if we're going to keep pushing a positive narrative, is the PK. I think 21 out of 22, one of the best
Humming since mid-month.
Or even earlier.
Yeah.
So that in itself is a good sign.
They settled into pairs of, I think, who's playing with Kampf and Marner? And then Yarn Croc going out with Gregor next, which is good. A little bit of speed, a lot of effort on that pair. And then, old Nyes and Matthews can get a little chunk, or even Willie at times. So,
and that good play has got them all the way up to 18th.
Is that right?
Yeah.
18th. Yeah, they were way down there.
Yeah, they were terrible for a while. But, power play scuffling a bit, though.
Yeah.
It's gone the other way. But
did we play Keefe on Max Domi?
No, we didn't.
Let's have a quick listen.
Huge for him, and a big one. So he's done well for us. He's found ways to contribute in different ways, obviously, and he's made some plays to make others look good. So it's great for him to have that moment.
There you go.
Yeah, I think if he can just find a nice balance between not giving up shots on goal and not overpassing or simplifying his game a little bit more, I think he could really lock in a good spot right there.
I'm fine with Max Domi if he's good defensively. He doesn't turn pucks over in his own end. I don't need to hear his name every night. He can have 2 nights where he doesn't do whatever, and then he breaks a game open and makes a play. Like, they just need someone in the bottom half of their lineup that can make a play. So I'm fine with that. You don't want him trading chances and taking chances to make those happen, but he's been pretty steady in that regard lately. So
For a guy,
I've liked it.
For a guy that scored his first goal in December, I would say they're actually getting pretty good value on the $3 million, which is pretty hard to say.
Yeah, they're getting about value.
Yeah,
which is reasonable.
Before we go to break, the 2024 Rogers NHL All-Star Game will be expanded to a 3-day event with the NHL All-Star Thursday at Scotiabank Arena, featuring the Tim Hortons NHL All-Star Player Draft, the NHL Alumni Man of the Year, and honoring the 1967 Maple Leafs and the Canadian Tire PWHL 3-on-3 Showcase. Tickets to the NHL All-Star Thursday go on sale Tuesday, December 5th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time on Ticketmaster. I believe that's tomorrow, fellas, at 10 a.m. Eastern Times. So you can catch all the action, including the Rogers NHL All-Star Game, right here on Sportsnet.
That's going to be fun.
Sammy.
There you go.
Okay, we're going to go to break. As we mentioned earlier, Craig Simpson, former National Hockey League Stanley Cup champion, current analyst on Hockey Night in Canada, will get his thoughts on what he saw Saturday night out of the Boston Bruins, and we'll also ask him about Austin Matthews and his streaky season so far. That and more when we're back on Real Kyper and Bourne. The Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Sam McKee. Really in-depth conversation off the air that we'd like you to join in right now. Okay, what does the rollback mean in golf? Like, what is that? What's going on with the golf ball?
It's a physical equipment change. Basically, golfers are hitting it too long. Courses are having to be too long. They take up more property. They need more water. So they're rolling back the ball. So you're going to hit it 5 or 10 yards less far.
I don't like that.
I'll hit it 205 instead of 220, and away we go.
But, it's the same for everyone. Courses can be a little smaller. It's the same challenge.
But there's no rollback on our egos.
No, it's true. But I forget who tweeted about this, but they said if your expectation is 200 or 300, you just want to hit it a few yards farther than usual or farther than your buddies or whatever. So
I don't care.
Just change your expectation. And
more excuse to play from the whites instead of the blues.
Well, and more people should do that.
Yes, agree.
So this has been Golf Talk.
All right, we got Craig Simpson on the line, or are we waiting for him?
Oh, we got him. I hear him.
Oh, my goodness. Well, let's go to the expert.
Can you do anything for my short game? Forget about the long ball. It's my short game that I give up. Yeah.
Well, the good news is we don't have to go as deep into the woods to find it.
That's exactly right. It'll speed up play.
How are you, Simmer?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Good. Let's get your thoughts Saturday night because it was a marquee matchup, and if I'm not mistaken, both teams do not play each other again till March, which is kind of disappointing. But the Leafs coming off the loss of Liljegren and Marchand, and maybe some ill feelings towards them. How did it play out for you?
I don't really think that was part of the story really at all. I think maybe part of the reason why Reeves played. I heard you guys talking earlier, about the early penalty that put Reeves on the defensive, and as the game goes along, he gets out of the shuffle again. So it's another problem when you're trying to use him as your physical presence. You guys all know, you get into a tough playoff matchup, there's no way that Sheldon Keefe's going to be able to use him in that role. So, he spots in and out of the lineup and gets to play. I don't think there was really an opportunity to do anything out of sorts in retribution. I just think that, to me, the game was an interesting one because I usually like the Boston-Toronto games because they're open and there's good energy and there's usually lots of chances. I thought it was a little bit telling that I thought anyways, I don't know how you guys felt, it was sort of a non-event game early on. There weren't a lot of great chances. Mm-hmm. I think the Pasternak goal kind of put the Leafs back on their heels a little bit. He's one of the few guys that can make that kind of shot, and it kind of rattles you when a guy scores on the top of the circles with a quick little wrister. So, I don't think I would have liked to have seen a game that is a big one, that you have such a good rivalry and history with the Bruins, that it might have been one that brought out, a strong offensive start for the Leafs. But I thought they played a protective game and maybe a cautious game, and that might be just part of how you have to play in these tight matchups against really top teams. Maybe they don't feel they're the team that can take over a game on home ice like that. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more in that, but they've been doing lately. They stayed alive, they battled through, and I thought Sheldon's comments after were, Boston's a hard team to possess the puck against. It's a hard team to get open ice against, and that you're going to be in a battle for loose pucks in the corners, at the blue lines, outside your own line. And I remember mentioning a couple of times, there was numerous times where there's 5 guys around the puck all battling and whacking sticks and trying to get an opportunity to pull the puck out and make a play. And there quite frankly weren't that many opportunities coming out of those kind of plays.
Right. Simmer, so what are your thoughts on where the Leafs are at? Like, I look at their last 10, they're 6-2-2. They're 12-6 overall. They're, 636 winning, all these nice stats, but they're a +2 goal differential team with 5 regulation wins. What are your thoughts on where the Leafs are at compared to what their record says they are?
Well, the 5 regulation wins are a little troubling when that's tied for second last in the league. So, you have to be wary of that because the 3-on-3 or the shootout is a little bit of a crapshoot. So you might go through a stretch. If you're continuing having to go to overtime, you might lose 5 in a row, and all of a sudden it's a different story. But I do think I said to Sheldon right at the beginning of the year, I thought, is this a year that, maybe you're going to have to find a way to win some games, and you might not have your A game going right from the start. You got a lot of new guys to integrate. And I thought last year, they only had 2 times last year, guys, where they went consecutive games without getting a point. And that's a pretty consistent 82 games of hockey. They had one stretch where they went 0-2-2, but they still, won in overtime or lost in overtime, lost in regulation, lost in overtime, lost in regulation. So you're still getting 2 points out of those 4 games. And with that, you never really deal with, internal adversity where guys are struggling and they have to find a way to win games when you're struggling. I mean, you look at playoffs, and that's all anybody is concerned about and worried about. The adversity comes, and how are you going to deal with it when man, this loss is bigger than any loss we would have had in the regular season. And sometimes, as Nick, you don't always have your A game, right? Like you're going to have nights where your top guys aren't quite going. So how do you pull it out of the fire? So, Justin, for nothing else, this has been a stretch where you could say they haven't had their A game. They haven't had the perfect game or a great defensive effort coupled with a great offensive effort in the same 60 minutes. But it might be something that you learn how to win some games when you're not playing well. And show me a Stanley Cup champion team that hasn't had to go through that in the course of the playoffs to get through a series or get through a game where they were bad early and they found a way to come back and win. So, if you're the glass half full guy, I think you look at it and say, these little lessons along the way of how to stay in a game when you're not playing well, how to come back when maybe it's not your star 4 guys that are bringing the comeback to fruition. And they might be lessons that they're learning early on. I still think, obviously, Keith says they got to put that 5-on-5 game, as you said, to a better level where they're, they got to be a plus 20 plus at the end of the year on 5-on-5. But I think it's good lessons learned, and it's finding a way to be comfortable being uncomfortable. I know a lot of guys have used that terminology, but there's going to be games that you got to find a way to win when your game isn't on and your top guys aren't the ones driving, and they've had quite a few of those. And to their credit, their record isn't that bad considering all those little ups and downs that they've had this early part of the season.
We're talking to Craig Simpson, 2-time Stanley Cup champion and Hockey Night in Canada analyst. So outside of the obvious, the 2 goals out of Austin Matthews, what did you see, Craig, Saturday night that we haven't really seen in the last couple of weeks?
Well, I just think, there was a number of times I always look at matchups and say, how is Sheldon going to handle a certain matchup against some pretty effective lines? I mean, the Pasternak is a guy that every time he's on the ice, you have to have a look. You got to make sure that you're covered off. And for nothing else, 2 guys, Simone Benoit and William Lagesson, I thought that was a growth game. I thought they both had some really difficult matchups that you didn't shy away from. I heard you talking before about how much Morgan Riley's playing. And even at times, I get worried that Jake McCabe gets extended a little too hard too. He's a good player, but he's not a 25, 26-minute guy. And so you had to have times in that game where you had a D pairing or a combination of a D pairing where they had to have really difficult matchups. And I was coming into this today thinking, look back at the last 2 Stanley Cups. And, the Florida Panthers getting there, you had guys like Josh Mahura, Gustav Forsling, even Mark Stahl, kind of along the lines of Giordano, who battled hard and got you all the way to the Stanley Cup final. And when you saw early on, you go, I don't know what I'm going to get out of these guys. On the Vegas side, Zach Whitecloud, Nick Hague, there's the growth that you had during the regular season that got them comfortable in the playoffs. And that's what you're going to have a good run. Even Tampa Bay losing to Colorado, Jack Johnson, okay, can he handle playing those big minutes? Byram, a young guy, Josh Manson, his first real step. Those are the growth things you have to have. And the Leafs are going to have. Now, I guess the problem the Leafs have is their top guys. You don't have the top 2 guys maybe at the same level of some of those guys. But I thought there was growth in that game from guys like Lagesson and Benoit. And you're going to need them to figure out if you can play them when you have to in those critical games.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And it is good. Like you said, you kind of don't know how many minutes or whatever they're going to give you, but they just need to be able to handle a few of them. So that's been a good thing. I'm looking at their game against Boston going, I don't know how good this Bruins team is. And then I step back and look at the whole Atlantic Division. It's like, it's pretty good top to bottom. Ottawa currently has the fewest points, but I think Ottawa's a decent team. How do you handicap the Atlantic Division? Kyper kind of feels like Florida may be better than Boston, even though they're 7 points behind them. How do you see this Atlantic Division playing out?
I think it's very wide open. And Chris and I said at the beginning of the broadcast, I know it's, game 22 or whatever, but you don't really want to be standings watching. But, all of a sudden with the kind of start that Boston had and then losing 3 in a row like they had, that last game, they could have been 4 points behind them with a game in hand, with a win. Instead, now they're 7, but with still that game in hand. So I do think that it's not a runaway, even though Boston had the good start to give them a little breathing room. The Rangers are another animal, but quite frankly, I think you just have to look within your own division and not worry so much about the Metropolitan Division and what's happening over there. But, I do think that the opportunity is there to stay in the mix. And that's why we said, despite the 5 regulation wins, all of those overtime points have been critical to keep you in the mix. And once you get on a roll and once you get your game together, maybe you get a little healthier, I think they have to be the mindset of keeping Boston and Florida in your sights and say, we got an opportunity to stay with them and to not be sort of going by the wayside saying, okay, Boston's going to win the division. I think it's going to be a good battle all the way through that allows them the opportunity to stay in the mix.
Looking forward to it, Simmer. And as always, thanks for doing this. And if we don't catch up to you through the holiday seasons, have a great one, okay?
All right, guys. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Simmer.
That's Craig Simpson, Hockey Night in Canada analyst. He mentioned it, Benoit Legason. And I watched one game of Benoit in the preseason, and I said, I'm not sure he could play in the American Hockey League, but this guy has found a way to spend the least amount of time in his own zone. Yeah. He can play the body. He can find a red line and he can get it in deep. And he's won me over up until this point.
Yeah. I trust him.
Playing
and I know
within
that sounds
himself.
silly. Yeah.
Like, doesn't do anything that he doesn't think he can do.
Yeah.
Just does the right thing.
Going to close as quickly as he can on a guy who has the puck in the corner.
Straight lines.
He's going to bang it off the glass if he's under pressure. And it's nice to have that sometimes. Be like, I trust what he's going to do here.
Him wearing number 2, I'm just like, little trust there too. The old Luke Shen number. I'm like, every so often it flashes my mind.
Did you see Shen fight Marcus Foligno a few nights back?
No, I didn't.
Oh God, Shen is a monster of a person. Just
coming to town this
left into his mouth
next week. It'll be interesting.
But at least Benoit, you got to give him credit because there's such a hole on that blue line and a need for just a simple guy like this.
Yeah, and
he has for the most part delivered.
Yeah, I'll say this about the guys that they have playing that role. They are the type of guys I want in that slot. For years, the Leafs have had Liljegren on the third pair trying to be an offensive defenseman or whatever, and it just hasn't worked. Liljegren, probably a second pair guy and can do the offense there, but on third pair, just nice to have some guys.
I think the key for him, though, is just finding a way to maximize his value without over asking. If he starts stepping in, and I don't know what he played Saturday night, maybe 16, 17 minutes.
Who's that? Benoit?
Benoit.
Yeah, Benoit.
Which for me is 15, probably 15-35. Somewhere between 11 and 14 for me would be in that perfect range. 12 and a half, 13. But if this guy starts going north of 15, I think there's a chance that there's going to be some gaps. There's going to be some turnovers. You just don't want to over ask.
I think that's totally fair. And I will say, just in the interest of being fair to people I've been hard to, Connor Timmins, pretty good game. Thought he was fine. Good Saturday night.
+2.
Yeah.
He was made a couple positive plays.
For sure.
I think, people get on Treliving pretty hard for the offseason. And I think the two poster boys, obviously, is that Klingberg and the Reeves signing. But he did bring in some depth here that's really helping them right now.
Yeah.
You think about they bringing in Gregor. You think about bringing in Benoit. You think about bringing in Lagesson. Domi's been getting better. Bertuzzi's improving.
Yeah.
It wasn't an out-and-out disaster like a lot of people want to make it seem.
Klingberg
disaster.
Being hurt is helping.
For sure. But he was a disaster.
Yeah.
But outside of that.
Not a good time to mention that Lafferty on the number 1 line in Vancouver.
I wasn't going to bring that up.
Well, runs into everything, kills penalties.
It's a great transition because we're going to be talking about them in the National Hour with Sat Shah. So there you go. But yeah, he looks awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's just how much better would they look if you're spending 1-1 on Lafferty instead of 1-3 on Reeves, right?
Yeah, you just take out Reeves and put in Lafferty. Your
fourth line is Lafferty, Gregor, and Camp.
That's good for like one win.
Yeah, but I heard Lafferty's horrible for picking music in the room.
What's he listen to? The oldies? Little Frank Sinatra? What's he picking?
All right. As Sammy mentioned, we go national next on the hour of Real Kyper and Bourne. Sat Shah will join us, coming off a huge win for the Vancouver Canucks over the Calgary Flames. We'll get into that and more, including Sam Lafferty lighting it up for the Vancouver Canucks. Our thanks to Craig Simpson in the first hour. Don't go away. We're only getting started here on the Real Kyper and Bourne Show. Let's welcome everybody into our Real Kyper and Bourne National Hour. We are live on Sportsnet and Sportsnet 650 in Vancouver and Sportsnet 960 in Calgary. And this hour of Real Kyper and Bourne brought to you by Bet365. So Vancouver and Calgary, good way to tee off this Monday. Not often you see a trade between two teams and then tee it up a few days later.
Yeah. I mean, I really enjoyed that game. Nice to see Zadorov almost score, too, against his old team, the empty netter that got tipped on the way. But
He also had a bomb from the half boards that missed by a centimeter, too.
he hits it hard. He's
Hits
got to
it
be
really
in
hard.
the top, 15 guys in the league or something.
We got Satiar Shah, who's going to join us momentarily from Canucks Central, Canucks game host as well, and we'll get his thoughts. But my first one is, man, he's a big guy who can move.
Yeah.
And that is a scene we don't see too often in the National Hockey League.
Well, he is one of those rare guys, and you feel like some of the best big men kind of take some time to figure it out. I'm not saying he's Zdeno Chara, but, that was a Chara thing. Early in his career, I remember watching him with the Islanders. It wasn't like it was in Norris Trophy Bruins years. So this guy's going to get better for them. He has a lot of tools, and, look at the Canucks decor. All of a sudden, you look at it and go, gosh, that's pretty good. So, yeah, good thing for the Canucks here.
Myers and him playing together is
Hilarious.
a lot of human being on the back end. That's not something you want to go up against.
They call him the Chaos Giraffe.
I just
Myers back there.
I just wanted to read the AP headline of the Canucks and Canucks and Flames game on Saturday here. I'm just pulling it up. Sorry, I just lost it. Oh boy, here we go. Mikheyev and Lafferty lead Canucks to 4-3 win over the Calgary Flames. So a couple guys.
You missed that in our Leafs hour. That's when you should have led with that one. Mikheyev and Lafferty. Two fast, long guys who can contribute, kill penalties.
Two guys, and if you include Zadorov at, a third and a fifth, not exactly big pieces to give up to get some real quality depth in your lineup.
Yeah, they took on some money, with the Zadorov thing, but you got rid of it with Beauvillier, so it makes sense. Who I think deserves some love on that Canucks decor is Ian Cole. Wherever he goes, they seem he makes a difference for them. Is with the Avalanche and pretty good, the Wild, Carolina, Tampa. Every time he's on a decor, it's like their teams have some
Pittsburgh.
success. Yeah.
In a championship, no?
Right. Yeah, he's been a part, in 2016-17.
16, Pittsburgh Penguins on a decor that you wouldn't have probably looked twice at.
He's just one of those
ends
guys.
up winning a Stanley Cup, led by Letang.
He might have won both of them. Yeah, he's got two really long playoff runs on his elite prospects, 24 and 25 games. So I imagine he did win two cups.
There you go.
And he's a steadying guy. Once they have Soucy back, all of a sudden the Canucks have a really solid decor.
And I'm sorry, but an opening goal that looks familiar with a few other goals this year by Quinn Hughes. It's not a great angle for Markstrom.
Low glove.
But you cannot catch what you cannot see.
Yeah. Gets that off awfully quick.
I got to ask, and we can get into this with Sat when you guys talk to him, but what fan base has had their expectations shift more from the start of a season till where we're sitting at right here than the Vancouver Canucks? It's
I don't
crazy.
know that I've ever seen it. I don't know that I've ever seen a team go in.
Think about what we were talking about this team heading into the season. Rick Tocchet took over. They were good last year, but you don't know if that's at the end of a year thing. You don't know. Yeah. And now you look at their, what are they, plus 35 goal differential. They're right there. They're ahead of the Kings, who are really good. They're right behind the Golden Knights. And they're just legitimately with a great goalie, well coached, good decor, good forwards. How do we not see this?
Well, so it kind of makes me feel sane because last year I would go on Halford and Brough in the mornings and they'd be like, "What do you think? What's going on here?" And I'd be like, "I don't know. They're good.
Yeah,
it's a good roster.
They got
I don't
good
know what to
players.
tell you. They got good players." So
I think Vancouver's turned themselves into the poster child for about
rebuild.
12 other teams right now going, maybe we're not as bad as we thought. Maybe with a couple of changes or just a new attitude, we can turn ourselves around as quickly as Vancouver has.
The Flames could have been thinking that on the other side of the game Saturday night, going, boy, flip a couple guys. Who knows here?
Okay, as promised, Sat Shah, host of Canucks Central and Canucks Game Host, will join us. Sat, thanks for doing this, pal. How are you?
I'm doing great. Always a pleasure, boys. How are you guys?
We're good. We were just mentioning not often that you can see a trade and then watch it from both sides of it like we did Saturday night, but I don't think it disappointed.
No, I don't think it did. I mean, Nikita Zadorov got an assist. He was out there for the crucial minutes, and he's what this team has needed in terms of adding somebody else in the back end. This team hasn't been short of storylines with their success so far this season. The Pettersson contract that has yet to be signed, and a bunch of other things going on. But it was nice to have a new storyline about a trade, and honestly, a team that's played really well. And you were kind of worried about some of the depth on the blue line. And getting a guy like Zadorov paid dividends right away against Calgary on the weekend.
So, Sat, I kind of want to ask you, not even about this year, but about the year before. And like, this team has a lot of the same pieces. Where was this? Like I was saying before you came on, like I kind of thought they were good before and they weren't. So I guess what's changed and why wasn't it working prior to this?
Well, I know, Justin, because we've spoken to you. I've heard your hits on Halford and Bruff as well. And I know you're always kind of flabbergasted. Like, this is a talented hockey team. Yeah. Look at Pettersson. Look at Miller. Look at Hughes and Demko and a number of other star players they have on this team. I think a lot of it, honestly, comes down to stability organizationally, having real alignment now with the head coach and the players and obviously with the management team. And I do think what they needed to do was really shake up that core, shake up what has sometimes been kind of deemed as a country club atmosphere in Vancouver over the years in terms of how people felt about the players not taking enough accountability. So I do think it was a lot of maturation individually for a lot of these players, the organization being aligned and, changing the mix enough that they had to build a new standard, new culture. And in terms of how these guys are playing, I mean, last year, yes, they struggled. Yes, there's a lot of stuff going on, but they really shot themselves in the foot more often than not. I mean, they had the most unforced errors in the league, I would say, based on the turnovers, bad turnovers they had. Defensively, they weren't paying attention to what other teammates are doing. Guys were playing for themselves. It was kind of like guys making sure that they're getting their stats when the team isn't performing well, when they didn't feel like the organization was going the right direction. The players went out and just produced. So last year, look, you saw Horvat career year, but defensively, he struggled. Look at JT scored. Defensively, he struggled. All their key players were scoring, but they weren't doing anything defensively. So I think it's been more than anything a real mindset change and having real organizational alignment for the first time in many years.
JT Miller to me is, I think, the biggest thing that I look at when I see the Vancouver Canucks on a guy that maybe had a reputation for looking after himself first or being loud in the room at the most inopportune time. And yet now this year it's completely fallen into place. Is that Rick Tocchet? Is that maturation out of Miller, knowing where he is in his career? Where do you look at first?
I think maturation plays a part into it, and not to get too, philosophical here. I mean, Kyper, you would know better in terms of NHL locker rooms and everything, but he's the type of personality that's a real alpha personality. He's a guy that isn't disliked by his teammates. I think last year some stuff came out about him being a salty teammate, and I think that was taken out of context because the guys on the team all love him and they all got along with him. And I know there's been some talk that over the years him and Pettersson maybe weren't best of friends, but it's been a fine working relationship at the very least. So I think there's some maturation being done, but I think a lot of it comes down to accountability. He's the type of guy that needs to have somebody above him that he respects, somebody who's not afraid of calling him out, holding him accountable, and not even so much about yelling at him and getting mad at him, but somebody who can relay that message with a level of respect. It just seemed like last year under Bruce Boudreau, a guy that very clearly was on the way out, and it was very clear that he wasn't the organization's guy. It got to a point where it seemed like the players were not responding the way they would to a guy that they felt like was a lame duck head coach. So I think having a personality like Rick Tocchet that can hold Miller accountable, but also relate to him in a certain way, I think he's one of those guys, like a wild stallion in many ways, that you need to just harness the right way and make sure that energy is being put into the right areas, and the fact that you don't let that get the better of him. And I think that's a big part of it. Maturity is part of it, yes. But I do think when you have a personality like JT Miller, you need to have a good cohesive ecosystem around them with accountability, with other leaders that aren't afraid of calling guys out if they have to. But having a coach who earlier this season, the game they were winning, benching him for 5 minutes. And this is where JT was leading the league in scoring. The coach wasn't afraid of sitting him down after taking 2 bad penalties at the end of the second period to cool down. And he said after the game, it is for accountability and also making sure that guy harnesses his frustration and energy the right way. So I do have to give a lot of credit to Rick Tocchet and having the leadership group now where guys are holding each other accountable a bit more.
I look at the best teams, the teams that win Stanley Cups, and a lot of people will tell you there's a true number one D man, there's a true centerman and a goalie. That seems to be like an integral part of most Stanley Cup teams. The Canucks check those boxes. Quinn Hughes is not your prototypical big number one guy, but he does defend. And it sounds like he's taken some offense at the implication he doesn't defend. Talk about his evolution a little bit into a guy that they can use as much as they do in both ends of the ice.
Well, he's really matured in a huge way. And it's not that he's afraid of taking chances. I don't think that's where his game has changed, really. I think it's really come down to his eagerness and willingness to get into the tougher areas. And it's not even so much about going out and hitting a guy, but it's about you putting yourself between a guy sometimes. You not being afraid of going to the corner and digging a puck out and being on the right side of a guy in front of the net even. And those are the types of things that, hey, you don't have to be the most physical guy, but don't let somebody just go right through you. And I think those are the things that he's done a really good job of. But he's such a smart player, and he's using his smarts with his anticipation to break plays up and get ahead of things. You see his stick being in the right passing, shooting lanes, deflecting pucks, and angling guys away. He's really matured in terms of how he's defending, not necessarily with size and strength, but just being smart about where he puts his position, where he puts his body, and where he puts his stick. And it's really evolved in a massive way. You don't see him really get beat wide very often. And you would think a guy that can skate well shouldn't get beat wide anyways, but his angles are better. His gap control is a lot stronger. And it's stuff that doesn't really stand out to you for a guy who's not big. You got to really watch him closely in his own end, but he really excels with the little details of defending. And it's pretty impressive seeing him grow in that aspect when it was a clear weakness of his game only a couple of years ago.
We're talking to Satiar Shah, host of Canucks Central on Real Kyper and Bourne. Sat, if you look at the change between the offseason with Hronek and now Zadorov, I mean, those are major changes that other teams can dream of because they're so locked in and not being able to get either money in or money out or add on its own. So where do the Vancouver Canucks go from here? Can you see this roster settling in at a certain point, or are they still looking?
I think that they're very much still looking. The guy on the back end that they're trying to get done is Ethan Bear, and whenever he's willing to sign, we'll see if they are able to get that over the finish line. I wouldn't be shocked, guys, that if they are able to clear a little bit of more cap space, that they're still kind of in the market around some defensemen. I know Chris Tanev is going to be really hard to pull off. We know that a team like Toronto's obviously been interested in him as well. I know Elliot mentioned how both Zadorov and Tanev were kind of guys that were after to get. If the Canucks can clear cap space, I wouldn't be shocked if we start hearing them maybe sniffing around Tanev again to shore up the defense even more. And even if they do all those things, guys, let's say they are able to get another defenseman and sign Ethan Bear, I still think they're going to be open-minded to doing some stuff up front. Because as good as this Canucks team has been offensively, I think the goal scoring is somewhat misleading. They lead the league in goal scoring, but they don't generate consistent chances for that to really stay on top of the league the entire season. I think there will be a time where if they can add another top six guy that can fit in, I think they would look at that as well, because right now they have players like Sam Lafferty, Phil Giuseppe for a while was playing with JT Miller. So when you're using guys who are more third-line players, fourth-line players, filling in that F1 spot on the top six line, it means there's still some room for improvement. Clearly the defense is a priority, but you guys know Jim Rutherford, Patrick Alvin, obviously making more trades than anybody ever since being named the Canucks GM over a year and a half ago, that they're still going to be very active on the trade front. I don't think even if they add a couple of defensemen, they feel like this team is a finished product. I still think they would love to add some more talent up front if possible.
Yeah, that's the fascinating part here is I think there's been a recognition more than in the past or a lot of other front offices. Like this team started out hot and they were kind of like, yeah, but we still need some work, which is pretty impressive to see. I was one of the people who was like, I don't think the Canucks are quite this good when they came out really good. And I know that was not a very popular sentiment in Vancouver because there's a lot of people basically being like, we know it's not going to, they're not going to shoot at this great clip. So, you think that this kind of puts them in an all-in position then to continue to improve as they move towards the trade deadline. I know they don't have a ton of flexibility, but where do you see their true talent level compared to the other elite contenders in that division, Vegas and Los Angeles?
I think they're a notch below. So I'd say the top tier in the Western Conference, you have teams like Vegas. You probably put Colorado in that spot as well, right? And Dallas is kind of in that mix. I think Vancouver is just a tier below. And I'd say LA is in the same mix as Dallas and Vegas right now. But I think Vancouver's a stronger team than teams like Calgary, obviously. They're stronger than teams like Seattle, I think, and even, clubs like the St. Louis Blues. Maybe the Winnipeg Jets are somewhat in that same tier where Vancouver is. So I think they're just a notch below those top-end teams. If they're able to add a bona fide top 4 defenseman and a top 6 player, then all of a sudden I think you can talk about Vancouver maybe being in a similar class to Dallas, being a similar class to the Vegas Golden Knights. They're not too far off. When you have a great goaltender and you have the star players, if you get hot, you can still cause a lot of troubles for teams in that first or second round of the postseason. But in terms of being able to go head-to-head, there's still a talent gap between the very top teams in the West and where Vancouver is. But it's still, I think, a graduation point from this team, from being a team that was really in that mushy middle heading into the year in terms of how people viewed them. Now they're kind of viewed as a bona fide playoff team that's maybe 1 or 2 moves away from putting itself in that discussion of being a Stanley Cup contender.
So one more for me before I let you go, and I just wanted to circle back on Zadorov because, again, the price wasn't necessarily a first or a second round pick here. So is this a rental situation? We know Zadorov left Calgary because he was not happy that they didn't have any interest in re-signing him. So where is Vancouver on long-term Zadorov?
I would be surprised if they don't get Zadorov done at some point. And I'm not saying imminently, but I'd be surprised that by the time we get to the offseason that they don't get Zadorov done to an extension. I think that connection with Dan Milstein and this front office has been too seamless and too fruitful for them not to get something done in this aspect. So I don't think they view him as a pure rental. It is interesting, though, that when you start looking at the cap space they have for next season, and they still have to sign Pettersson, they still have to sign Filip Hronek, and there's only so much cap space you have for it to go around. But I think even if those guys aren't quite done yet, they have a ballpark idea of what those ranges will look like for those 2 players. But I would be surprised, Kyper, that if they don't get Zadorov done, I think this was done in mind for helping them this season, but also being a player that they feel like can really fit in with this head coach and this organization long term.
Okay, well, if I'm going down this path, we might as well go one more with Petey and where that number could lie. Are you in the market obsessed enough, like many here in the East, on Willie Nylander and his contract number and daily water talk?
Moves like the stock market here. It's 11-4,
water
10-9,
cooler
10-9.
talk here.
Well, it's gone down. So when he was leading the league in scoring, Elias Pettersson was like, is he going to be the highest paid player in the league? Is somebody going to pay him more than what Connor McDavid is getting and what Austin Matthews is getting? And now he's cooled off and he's way down the list. I think he's 8th or 9th now, and as far as the top scorer in the league. So people are looking at it and saying, well, is he closer to 10 or 11 million now? And I think the truth has always kind of been he's not obviously in the same class as McDavid and Matthews yet. Matthews, the goal scoring rate is just incredible what he's done. So I do think those guys have a greater track record clearly of where Pettersson is. So I never took it real seriously for him to be a guy that makes 12.5 million. I kind of look at the contract David Pastrnak got, 11 and change perhaps over, whether that's 5 years, whether that's 4 years or even longer. I've always kind of viewed his range of being somewhere in that aspect. Guys, I think it simply comes down to Elias Pettersson right now. I think this management team has made it very clear. They believe in this player. They want to keep this player. They're willing to sign him whenever he's ready. It just comes down to, number one, what term is Pettersson looking for? Is it 3? Is it 4? Could it be a longer term contract? And when is he willing to put ink to paper? And so far, as much as Pettersson's camp has said things are positive, he hasn't been willing to take that step yet to sit down and really hammer out a contract. And hopefully it's only a matter of time. But I'd say the range would kind of be in that Pastrnak contract when it's all said and done.
Sat, great stuff, man. So appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, always a pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Sat.
All right. Sat Shah, host of Canucks Central, Canucks game host, does a terrific job out there.
Yeah. It's funny. It is very similar with the Willie contract. We haven't talked about it in however many shows.
It is funny that we haven't. Every time he scores, it's like, it's going up. And when he doesn't score, no one says it's going down.
Yeah. Well, because it's not going down. I think we all are pretty
under the
weather.
Going down.
But I think it's probably pretty similar with Pettersson.
It's not going down. There's one thing that Sat mentioned, which I want to just pick up a little bit with you guys, and JT Miller, and said alpha dog.
Yeah.
I am a big believer in an alpha dog.
There's no one you love more in the league. I don't think.
Yeah,
you love him.
Yeah, he is your guy.
And
well,
great, that's okay. It's not a criticism to love JT Miller.
It's not. I just love the fact that there's some guys in there that can just have no problem taking the weight on their shoulders.
Yeah.
And he is one of them now. So it was kind of ugly last year for him. Kind of ugly in terms of probably listening to everybody come every which way and tell you that you need to go and Bo Horvat needs to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he hung in there. Everybody thought that the contract was a disaster last year, and now it's good value. And how much has he really changed?
Well, so this is something that's impressed me with Miller is when Miller talks about his season last year, he doesn't go, well, I wasn't quite this or I wasn't quite that. He goes, it's the same. I'm playing the same, but we're winning. You know, so people look at what I do differently. He still had a few moments this year, turnovers, whatever, that have gone the other way. But he basically said last year he did say that he forced it a little bit, but the biggest change is perception.
And Sat brought it up there. He's like, he got benched while he was leading the league in scoring. So it's like there's still going to be little things with him where.
Well, the little things, too, sometimes for me is the body language. But I'd rather deal with his bad body language than a guy that shows nothing at all.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, I want to give their front office credit here. You know, everyone was saying keep Horvat, get rid of Miller, don't sign Miller. I was one of the people at the time. I think I said they should probably do a rebuild. They should probably move on from their big contracts. Eating that one a little bit this year because it seems like they got to go in the right direction.
I'm pretty surprised how good.
Yeah.
I'm pretty surprised.
So if JT Miller's the alpha dog in Vancouver, who's the alpha dog in Winnipeg?
Well, Blake Wheeler got sent out of town, so I don't know.
Probably Scheifele.
Scheifele or their current captain in Lowry?
Yeah, I'd probably say Scheifele, though. I guess, but best player doesn't necessarily mean alpha. I love this conversation.
No. This is alpha dog.
This is Sports Talk Radio America's conversation.
We're having it.
I love it.
This is big voice.
Love it.
Big voice, big personality, guy that can take charge everywhere, on the ice and off the ice.
So in Edmonton, is that McDavid for you, or is it Draisaitl
all
or
day
Kane?
long, 97.
Okay.
All day long.
I mean, there's a lot of really obvious ones. Ottawa, clearly Brady.
Clearly. Brady
Kachuk.
He may be the number one alpha dog in the league.
Yeah.
And he's still learning to manage that, by the way.
Yeah.
And they're young and may not be completely ready to
It's unrefined.
channel it in a positive.
It's a little raw.
Yeah.
How did you phrase it?
Unrefined.
There you go.
Yeah.
Leafs?
No. Calgary?
Calgary?
I'm not sure they have one.
Yeah, I like
Lindholm.
that Rasmus Anderson.
The first one that came to mind, I don't know why, was Coleman. I like Coleman a lot.
Yeah, but he can't be. It's like when Andrew Ferentz was the captain of the Oilers.
Can't be a depth kind of, lower tier.
This is all baiting us to say that Matthews isn't enough.
No, we'll get there.
Kadri?
We'll get there.
Kadri? Veteran guy, been on a lot of win the cup.
Yeah.
Always had that kind of swag.
I like Kadri a lot. I just don't have him as a number one
He's always been the
centerpiece
third
kind of
best
guy.
player on his team or whatever.
Yeah.
So
I have trouble putting Kadri in as a complete alpha dog Stanley Cup. I like him behind Nate
Send us your
McKinnon.
alpha dog top 10.
I
Send us your
love
pick.
this conversation. I can't tell you how much I love this conversation.
I'd like to point out that I am extremely not
Sammy?
that.
Oh,
Did we cover every
you didn't bring
team
up the
in the
Leafs.
league?
You didn't bring up the Leafs.
Oh,
No.
I didn't bring up the Leafs. Do the Leafs have an alpha dog?
Are you saying their captain, John Tavares, is not?
Not
think
even close.
If I was
being an alpha dog.
I was going to say Morgan Riley would say would be the guy I would pick.
Morgan says the right things. He just, because he does, no one interviews him.
He's a passionate guy.
Yeah.
Cares. I don't know him.
It doesn't steer in that direction for me.
Not Mitch.
Not Mitch.
Austin. Huh?
Reeves.
Austin doesn't. I'm not sure he wants that. And I think if Austin wanted to be the captain and portray an alpha dog image, he probably could have had it by now.
He would have been the captain if he didn't show his little hiney to somebody. I truly believe that.
Doesn't mean that it would have been the right choice.
I agree. I think Tavares was the easy choice. I think it was the one that, especially after whatever happened,
Should have
that
been Morgan all along.
I agree.
Yeah.
I actually agree. But I guess we'll find out in a couple years when Tavares.
Montreal have one?
Gallagher.
No.
No?
No.
Suzuki's
No.
got too quiet, but
He's
he's the guy who should
I
be.
think
Xhaka?
Oh.
Gallagher maybe a few years ago, but I don't think now. But I think
Arbor
they're
Blackeye?
they're
Fight him?
yeah, they're looking for one.
Yeah. That's, I mean, I don't know how many of them fit your criteria in the league where you're one of the top 3 guys on your team, but you're also outspoken.
Wow,
and
you could pick 12 teams and go through it and
Vegas
know
have,
for sure.
Like Mark Stone's that.
They have like 4 on
I'm
that
telling you,
team.
I love Pietrangelo too.
Yeah.
I think he's sneaky alpha
The slash
dog
on Draisaitl
thing.
was pretty definitive,
Yes.
pretty confident.
Boston,
McKinnon, 100%.
Boston, no problem finding one there,
Yeah.
right?
You could call, instead of the Cats, you could call them the Florida Alpha Dogs.
Yeah.
Every guy on
Number.
that team.
Yeah.
All right. I
Okay,
love
go
that.
ahead, Sammy.
Boys, what a great conversation.
You love that.
Oh, I do.
Hey.
I do. Well, I listen to a lot of American sports talk. Like, I like talking about basketball and everything
Yeah.
else, and it's like that's much more of a thing you'd talk about. Anyways, it's game time presented by Bet365. Visit the app for the latest odds and find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus. Ontario only. Please play responsibly. Now, couple things. Just to looking at a few games for tonight before I get into a future. So the Habs are pretty big underdogs on home ice tonight. They're plus 140 against the Seattle Kraken. The Seattle Kraken are minus 160. And to me, watching the Seattle Kraken play teams, there is no way they should be favored by that over anybody.
And Montreal's
Habs,
actually not that bad.
They have professional hockey players and they can play. So to me, that's an easy one for the Habs tonight on home ice.
Okay.
They cannot score.
No.
Squids?
Oh,
Oh, they suck.
now they lost Schwartz for a long time.
And they got shut out by
Where are
the Sens on Saturday night. I don't love them as a huge favorite in Montreal. The Flyers on home ice plus 100 against the Penguins. We can listen to Torts later in the show talk about why they win so many games. But yeah, love the Flyers and love the direction. So give me the Flyers.
What's
plus
my
100.
Pittsburgh number there?
Minus 120.
I still like Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's results have not matched their process, which has been pretty good.
Yep. And so the future that I wanted to bring up was, do you think for the worst regular season record, the Sharks were such overwhelming favorites for this for so long, and now they're down to minus 150 for the worst record to finish with, and the Blackhawks are right there with them at plus 230. So there's been such a huge change from the start of the season to now for the worst team in the league.
The Blackhawks and the San Jose Sharks. Go ahead.
I was just saying, like, San Jose Sharks hung in there at Madison Square Garden last night.
They did. Scored 5 on the Rangers.
Like, yeah, I think
And
half the
still
team
lost.
was skating at Rockefeller Center or something for the Rangers for that to happen.
But hey, they played similar amount of games. The Blackhawks are minus 29.
Mhm.
The Sharks are minus 55.
Yeah, you lost 10-0 twice. That doesn't help.
How is that an endorsement?
Because those are 2 games. There's just one-offs.
They're just 2 offs.
2 offs.
Actually.
Yeah. So
All right.
I just find it very interesting that, like, yeah, right from the start of the year, we're all like, they're going to be by far the worst. And the third best odds for that, who do you think it is?
For the worst team,
Mhm.
Columbus.
Yes, correct. Columbus is there, and then it goes to Montreal, Anaheim, and then Arizona. So they don't really have a lot of options.
Arizona.
Yeah, but they're like
Arizona's in a playoff.
yeah, but they're
spot.
like plus 150.
Okay.
So it's just anyways. So I just thought that was interesting to bring up.
And it was.
Okay. That was Game Time presented by Bet365. Visit the app for the latest odds and find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus. Ontario only. Please play responsibly.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break and open a window in here
Oh,
or a
God.
door. Is there a sunroof
I may
somewhere
be
we can open up?
shirtless when we come back and no
It
one
has
wants.
absolutely gotten way worse, right?
What is going on?
I'm dying.
They hate us. That's
I'm
what's
melting. Like
They're
I'm
mad
physically
at
getting tired as the show goes on. 'Cause I'm just-
us. Sam's napping.
They're
I'm
trying to
shirtless.
smoke us out.
Yeah,
honestly.
they are.
That's what's happening here. All right, but we're going to battle through it.
Yes, pit stains and all.
And we have plenty more around the NHL to get to, including a $12 million contract in Winnipeg. Who's a healthy scratch in Washington? Is it baseballs, basketballs? What is Tortorella talking about?
I don't know, but I'm also looking forward to talking about baseball at some point in the show because there's Soto and Ohtani to talk about. So we need to get to that before we're done.
And a Tampa Bay conversation
Yes.
on
We have so much show left. We better-
whether what's going on in Tampa Bay. This was supposed to be fixed with their goalie coming back. Not the case. for the Tampa Bay
4
Lightning.
straight losses.
As you can tell, plenty more still to go on Real Kyper and Bourne. The Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Sammy McKee. News and notes. Where do you want to go?
Not sweating. I'd like to go somewhere cool. Okay.
My vote is Lightning.
Okay, Lightning.
Okay, they got their lunch fed to them by the Dallas Stars.
Spoon-fed their porridge.
And I think it's I'm having a tough time with it.
Are you all right over there?
And they're all tangled up. So I think it's a horrible look. Like they're all like, "Oh, Vasi's like a competitor. He won't come out of the net." You gave up 6, bud. You got to come out of the net. Too bad.
Gotta come out of the net.
Too bad.
Did they not pull him?
He wouldn't come
He
out.
wouldn't come out.
What do you mean wouldn't come out?
He wouldn't come out. The backup, what's his name there, Johansson, was getting all his gear on and wouldn't go. Wouldn't go.
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, he wouldn't go.
That's a big deal.
It's embarrassing. That's showing up a Hall of Fame coach. I know you don't. You play every minute.
Listen, I think John Cooper has really gone head and shoulders above and beyond respecting Vasilevsky over the years
Yes.
in this sort of scenario. But to blatantly
Owed the
go
same.
against your head coach on a coach's decision like that
Listen.
is a listen.
All right. Let me just throw this out there. Is Cooper in trouble? The big
Listen.
thing. The big thing with Cooper has been that
Sammy.
Yes.
he doesn't need to go with his
Sammy
guys.
thinks he's going to get. They're going to fire Sheldon and now hire John Cooper.
Oh my God, I wouldn't
The
get a hand
big
of that.
thing is that Cooper doesn't need to go at these guys often because they know what they need to do. They can turn it on at the right time. They're 10-10, minus 10 goal differential, lost 4 in a row. He's lost it on them a number of times now. The goalie's not coming out of the net. I think you could say they're underachieving their roster.
Or just the roster isn't that good
No,
anymore.
but people don't admit that. You're not allowed to admit that.
I will say this, that I expect them to finish the season regardless.
Yeah.
But they all have a shelf life,
Cooper
including
is-
John Cooper.
The longest tenured coach in the NHL by a good distance.
So have they finally tuned him out? Or they finally had enough? Like, there's some distractions out there. You cannot tell me the Steven Stamkos contract scenario
Absolutely.
was not anywhere near a distraction.
Mm-hmm. Looking at the longest tenured coaches in the league, he is more than 2 years the longest tenured, going back to March of 2013. So we're coming up. Actually, we're past 10 years.
Which is an incredible
He's
run.
been there.
That is that's longer than I thought it was. That's really good. I bet you Keith's sneaky high on that list.
You know what he is. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys ahead of Keith. He is the 7th longest tenured coach.
Wow.
You know who the guy ahead of him is? Just by, I don't know, 4 or 5 months? DJ Smith.
Yeah.
Been around a long time with Ottawa, who I know some Sens fans have.
Won him out yesterday.
Yeah. And I think
So
good
hold on.
coach and
We're done
good-
on the Lightning?
No, we're not.
We're done on the Lightning?
No.
Let's not lose the.
Okay, sorry.
This is a very exciting time for me and my family.
I think,
I'm so happy for you.
I also think
I'm thrilled.
that it was not a foregone conclusion that Vasilevsky was going to come back from major back surgery and just step in and be the savior for Tampa Bay. It just doesn't happen that way.
You know, for my money, he's been the best goaltender of the past 10 years or whatever in the Cooper's time in the NHL. And that's probably why I believe he never pulled him last season, regardless of
I don't know
what
if
was
he
happening.
ever has in the last
Yeah.
gazillion years I can remember.
Well, and
He's only
remember,
29.
remember our playoff conversations where we would be like, how, like the Leafs ran it up on them a couple times where they scored 6 and we're like, how is he not taking
Yeah,
them
just
out?
take him out, give him a break.
It's insane.
a
They just
playoff series.
never did.
Yeah.
I'm not leaving.
How old is he, Sammy? How old is
He
he?
is 29.
Yeah.
See, he is an incredibly young, successful goalie.
Crazy that he's
he makes
29.
9.5
Listen, if-
until 2028.
If he never regains the status of what he had before back surgery, like,
It
it's a
looked like the
pretty
Bond
darn
deal.
good reason why your game falls off. Back surgery for a goalie.
I think that would be...
So
Derek's on fire.
So since 2017, 2017, these are regular season games played. 50, 65, 53, 52, 42, 63, 60. And that doesn't even, I'm not even looking at the playoffs here. The playoff numbers are even, that's 4, 8, 17, 4, 25, 23, 23. It's just a ton of hockey.
It is a lot of games. And
we should consider him like a dog. He's 29.
But in goalie years,
he's like 73.
Yeah. And you know what's fascinating is we sit here and talk about Cooper. Is he in trouble? It's the same thing as every coach who's ever been fired. They're the fourth last team in the NHL in team save percentage. They're getting 88% is the team save percentage at this point. Only teams below them, Oilers, Devils, and Hurricanes.
Devils have been brutal goaltending.
They've got no help. They're second to last. Canes have got the worst goaltending in the NHL this year. Oilers climbing on up.
Victor Hedman, 1,000 games.
Mm-hmm.
Another guy that's had tremendous wear and tear over those 1,000 games. And just, again, to revisit that blue line outside of Victor Hedman, how good is it? Sergachev, we have him as, according to his salary at over $8 million, one of the better defensemen in the league. I think he's prone sometimes to look like he's a
roller coaster.
Some big mistakes out there.
He can look like Tyson Barrie both ways some days.
Zadorov, another guy known for prone mistakes.
Yeah, he's minus 16 on the year.
So Hedman walked through this building once. He was coming here to do an interview, and he looked like that tree person in Lord of the Rings.
He's a mutant.
Just an absolute mutant.
And he skates like he's 6'1".
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous how good he is. But I think time, it always happens with every really good run. Like, it kind of happens quicker than you expect it.
Oh, Sammy, it's over, is it?
Not saying it's close to over.
Oh.
But I'm just saying.
You think for Hedman or for the team?
For the team.
Okay.
Not for Hedman. I mean, Hedman will probably play 1,500 games. He'll be cruising around forever.
For sure.
But I just mean, like, it happens quicker than you expect it always.
Yeah.
When these teams, just a downturn happens, and it's like, oh, they're not as good.
Use up all your resources trying to not go the other way, and all of a sudden it's like, God, did we trade Jeannot for 5 picks?
Yeah, that was.
And then you don't have 5 picks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Winnipeg Jets Inc. El Nino Ryder, 3 years, $12 million contract extension. I thought these were going away as the dodo bird.
The middle class deals?
Yes, the middle class. Either you're making $10 million or you're making $750. There's no middle guy, but there is for Nino.
Sam and I were talking about him. His like career earnings are fascinating. He's just always been the middle class guy who's pretty good. And you love him on your team if he makes like 3, and when he was making 5, you didn't want him. So he's like that guy that
been pretty good with Lowry and Appleton.
His last 2 contracts, he signed a 2-year contract in 2022 with the Predators for 2 years, $4 million.
$4 million.
And he just signed another contract for 3 years, $4 million.
And you know what? He works hard. He's a strong guy. He'll shoot it in the net sometimes. Like, you know what you're getting from him. No one loves him. Like to have him.
A little fiery, too.
It'll expire by the time he's, 34. It's not horrible.
And he'll sign for 2 years, $4 million again.
And, keeping him in Winnipeg. Yeah, get another $4 million contract.
What, do you guys want to play the Torts clip?
Yeah.
Yes.
So Torts really pumping up his team.
He's like, I don't think we're very good, but we should do it.
We suck.
No, that was old.
So, the clip from after they beat the Penguins in a shootout or was it the Penguins? Yeah, I think they beat the Penguins in a shootout on Saturday. And then he talked about why they won the game. If Derek, you want to play that clip?
No, we win the game because we got balls. We do. We do stupid stuff. We don't make some plays sometimes. Lose sight of certain momentums in the games. A number of things we have to work on and try to get consistent at. But one thing we do have is balls.
There you go.
Balls.
Just one more time. Let me follow up.
Balls.
Hey, okay.
I'm okay with it. But some nights where it doesn't look, you also got to say that we have no balls.
Is that, yeah.
Can he say?
It's a really
does he
interesting.
want to go down that path?
It's an interesting thing to say that. Yeah, we got a lot of stupid stuff. We're not very good. I don't like some of the decisions we make, but we
Oh,
I will say
the size of elephant nuts.
you have
Balls.
you have been critical of the Leafs this year for not being that version of success.
What are you pinning it on me for? They've been called
Not all
soft
nuts
for
are
4
equal.
years. I'm the guy.
You are the guy. Yes.
Yeah.
You're not the guy now.
And where is everybody else on some nights? Like Sheldon.
No, you're right.
Sheldon called his
He
own
uses
team soft.
euphemisms. He beats around the bush, if you will. Oh man.
Man.
Friday.
Is it important anymore to have these in 2023?
Yeah, well, I think it's actually not smiled upon to use that language.
To me, there's
No, but we can say bag skate.
Yeah, I actually did get a scolding for saying that Tavares was working his school
Balls.
bag off. So yeah, working his bag off.
I do like Torts sometimes.
I like Torts.
He's very hit and
We
miss.
can
for
have a
me.
whole show on Torts and his
Sometimes-
sound bites. Of course you love them.
Sometimes I hate
I
it.
guess that's what I'm saying, Brooksy.
At least you talk about alpha type of guys who will
Yes.
tell you what they think. John would meet that requirement for
Yes.
Philly. Can the coach be that? Or maybe the coach should be that.
Yeah, he can set a tone.
Yeah.
For sure. Like Talkett's set a tone in Vancouver. Tortorella has one in Philly. So
At least you know where you
yeah,
stand.
I think most definitely these type of coaches can set the tone.
Torts does
Well,
that. He
I mean,
knows
look
what
at-
he wants. The
look
guys
south-
know what they want from him.
Look south of the border, the college football guys, their coaches are all the biggest stars.
Yeah.
That's like the whole thing is like Saban and Kirby Smart. All these guys
How
are the
about
biggest stars.
Dion?
Yeah.
Coach
Dion
Prime.
didn't work out too hot this year, but
They
they
lost 100
yeah.
in a row.
But no, it's just like I think the coach can be like a star, kind of. Especially, I think Babcock would have been the star if he had been on Columbus this year, but that didn't turn out so well, did it?
Yeah.
So where you mentioned briefly early before we brought it back to Tampa Bay, but you mentioned the Ottawa Senators. Big shutout win
After
over
they come.
Seattle
after losing to Columbus.
after losing to Columbus. But where are we with the vibe that everything gets fixed with DJ Smith
I'm Team Ottawa.
leaving?
No, I don't think that's it. I think this team, you know what's going on right now? They haven't played any games. You look at the standings, they're with the bottom. They're actually last in the Eastern Conference, but they're 9-10 with a +1 goal differential. The teams ahead of them are -14, -14, -19, -4. Like Ottawa is going to play more games. They've played 19 and Columbus has played 26. Look at the GR games remaining.
Yeah.
So if they they play 5 games, they win 3 or 4 of them, all of a sudden they're up at whatever that is, 23, 24 points. They're in the mix. I like Ottawa still, and I don't think they're done this year.
Kipper, your spidey sense about Corpusalo, though, was
Yeah, that's not going great.
He's okay, but
Is
he's
he the
not.
finished Jack Campbell?
Not okay.
Yeah, I know.
He's
No, he's
897.
okay as a
Overall.
1B.
Yeah.
He's an
Well,
897 so
Yeah.
far this year.
Making 5 by 5.
897.
Yeah, 897.
You know what though?
341
To
goals
kind of
against.
help him out a little bit. What's the league average now? It's
Just
dipped.
over 900. It's 903 or
902,
something.
904.
You're
So
right,
it's
it's not
not
that-
crazy.
And they were without Thomas Chabot, who plays 27, one of their number one guy in
Yep.
terms of ice time for 10 games or something for a stretch there. So Ottawa's too good. They have too much talent.
Elliot Friedman on Saturday, I think, and just part of that mentioned Tyson Barrie allowed to shop his services. You know, when a player gets told you can go out and shop your own services,
He's been
that's
told
the
something
team
else.
telling him we're out of ideas.
Yeah.
What do you mean? What ideas? How to use you? Is that what you mean?
It's
Use you,
it's
play
you. Don't
you.
have to go, but you can't stay here. You know?
We don't know what to do with you.
Yeah.
You got
It's-
any ideas?
It is funny to go to the player and be like, could you trade yourself? Could we arrange this somehow?
And the answer is yes, because that's what good agents do.
And the very first thing my brain, like a lot of Canadian teams' brains go, like, can he work in Toronto? Can he work in
No.
Edmonton? Can he work
Well, we
in...
saw it in both those places.
I know.
There's a lot
it
of
didn't work.
people
Correct.
pointing to the direction of New Jersey Devils because Dougie Hamilton's out for a prolonged period of time. What did he do? He ripped his arm apart or
Pec.
something?
Torn pec.
Torn pec.
Yeah.
So everybody wants to assume that Tyson Barrie can go and fill those minutes up of Dougie Hamilton's, but he doesn't strike me as a New
Not a
Jersey
one-for-one.
Devil
No, it
type of guy.
does to me. I can see them
You
liking
can.
it. Yeah. They had Subban there for years. Dougie
How'd that
Hamilton is
work
one of
out?
those. Well.
Yeah.
So, Hamilton's working out pretty good.
Hey, should we talk about Kuznetsov not playing this evening?
Yes, Washington in disarray.
That's a $5 million player not playing. That's
I have to
statement
believe.
stuff from Carberry.
Yeah, and he made a comment that said he just needs a mental reset. We need to reset his brain is another way of saying a mental reset. Like, get him back on some sort of good wavelength. Would not be shocked were he to not be a Capital on March 4th.
I think they've probably tried on a few occasions. I mean, he's had some issues there, and then he's played well, and then he has some issues there, and I think we could just blame his shootout speed for all of it.
A lot of people would like a guy who could score like him, right?
Wonder when Alex Ovechkin will go to the press box.
Give us the OV update. How's his
I just love
goal
taking
watch?
shots. He's got one since November 14th.
Oh, that's a lot of days ago.
5 up to now. Still is stuck at 5.
Stuck at 5.
Boy, Kuznetsov had 12 goals last year. I missed that tidbit.
Speaking of goals, Sammy, did you see Trevor Moore's goal?
Oh my God!
Saturday night,
I saw it.
Put
It
his
was last
team
night.
in
It
the
was last
spin
night.
cycle.
off the charts.
Yeah.
Good.
And
Bar down
and I saw Byfield, and who was it that he
on
passed
the bench. Just be like,
No, Byfield on the bench. Byfield and his buddy, was it Kempe?
Kopi and Kempe.
Yes.
They did like the
They did
like
a
a
Boston.
hug.
They did a Boston Bruins goalie celebration
They
a
did
little
like
bit.
like a pre-planned celly.
I'm in on pre-planned sellers. I like them.
Oh my God! I'd crack my head over my stick over your head
Yeah, I had
if
that
I was on
happen.
the ice beside
Yeah.
you.
I scored an OT winner in Fairbanks.
I get it's
pretended to pull a Sharpie out and
2023.
sign my stick, and
I probably have to be a
it
little
go
bit
off.
more patient
What?
now for sellies, but pre-planned sellies
Hold
is
on.
just energy
Okay,
wasted.
you did what?
Well, it was right after T.O. had done
Yeah,
it in the
yes,
NFL.
yes.
So I scored an OT winner. Anchorage versus Fairbanks, OT winner. And by Fairbanks bench, I pretended to pull a Sharpie out and sign my stick and give it to someone else.
I thought you actually did the Sharpie.
And
Wow.
the next game, I lined up by a guy, Kyle Greenwood, might have been his name, something like that. And he goes, that's a pretty fancy stelly for a guy who's had a bad career.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
But no stick over the head.
No, I didn't get kids college.
You were lucky
What are
then.
you going to do? It's full cage.
That's true.
You can do stuff like that.
That's a great Sally.
Yeah.
By the way, LA's coming on here.
Oh, they're a wagon. They
I
definitely deserve the
They're
conversation.
my favorite team in the league.
Strong. The only thing you kind of wondered, the goaltending, but Talbot's put that to rest early in this season so far. But I'm not sure where you want to go with that goaltending.
I'm sure they're keeping an eye on things around the league.
Yeah.
I would imagine goaltending wise.
9-0-0 on the road.
It's crazy.
Kings.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And Byfield
That's so
turning
yeah.
into a
Byfield,
love 'em.
Kempe, and Kopitar, 6'2", 6'3",
Power,
6'5",
big
ting 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 with a
power
little
guy.
tic-tac-toe the other night. Look out for that line.
Loved him since
That's-
junior. Glad it's turning out. He was awesome.
Trying
for
to
World
hang on
Juniors.
those guys in playoffs.
He's a
Good
stud.
luck.
Stud.
All right, how many games on tap, Sammy? 6?
Got a few there. I printed
You got
it
a
out for
few.
you. I don't know where they are.
Dallas
There
and
you go.
Tampa
Yeah,
Bay.
6.
Dallas and Tampa Bay.
Yeah, Tampa gets Dallas again.
8-1.
Wow.
This will tell us a lot about Tampa. Are they
You're
going to
darn right.
give us a better showing
Yeah.
tonight?
And at some
Philly.
point, are we going to have to talk about Arizona at all?
I'm good.
Playoff spot.
I-
I'll just say Schmaltz and Keller. I like
Keller's a good player.
Yeah.
Really good.
Our thanks today to Craig Simpson and Sat Shah, host of Canucks Central, for joining us on Real Kyper and Bourne. Enjoy your games tonight. Give us a rating and review if you got a chance. We'd love to hear from you. We're back to do it all again tomorrow on the Real Kyper and Bourne Show.